Hey everybody, welcome to this. I'm Dr. Maggie Yu, and I am an integrative physician, MD, and we have a program for helping people transform autoimmune to help people turn around their autoimmune disease naturally. And it's an online program that can be done by anyone in the United States. And today what we're talking about is something that was huge in our Facebook group. We have a huge Facebook group, and if you haven't joined it, please join it. It's called Transform Autoimmune Disease Naturally. Right now, what I'd love to do is, before we get things started, today we're actually going to do a big question and answer. I'm going to answer all your burning questions around food and autoimmune disease. And you can start right now by posting in the comment section if you're watching, where you're watching from. That's great. It gives us some demographics of who's watching. And number two is post a question you have about food that you haven't been able to get answered as it relates to your autoimmune disease. I would love to answer those right now. And if you're watching right now, if you can give me a thumbs up, a heart, that'd be great. And anyone that you know is struggling with autoimmunity, and go ahead and put their name in the comment section so you can share it with them right now. Sharing is caring, and it's raising awareness. Do that right now. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce a couple people who are going to be doing this live with me. And first of all, I want to go ahead and introduce Elsa. She deals with people want to learn more about our program. So I'm going to have Elsa introduce herself really quickly to you all.
Hey guys, this is Elsa. It's nice to see all of you or be in this space with all of you. I'm excited for you all to hear about food freedom and just learn all of the burning questions that get asked all the time. We finally get to answer them today, and I'm excited to be part of it. So nice to meet you all.
Give me 1 second, and I'm going to be sharing this to our Facebook group right now. We're going to, so number one, and number two is I want to introduce actually an alumni who just recently graduated from our program, and her name is Misty. And a lot of you had questions about what it's really like to actually go through our program, and how's it different than what you've already done with food and testing and the process. So I'm just going to have Misty say a quick hi to everybody.
Hello. Hi.
All right. And then we'll be going back to Misty. First of all, I want to talk about why we're having this question and answer. And number one is that there's been a lot of people with autoimmune disease, myself included, who really struggle with food. And the reason is it's really confusing because conventional medical doctors are not trained really on the role of food and disease, period, number one. Number two is they certainly don't know how to be trained in the role of food in dealing with autoimmune disease. And food makes a ginormous difference in autoimmune disease. And you already know that. But to be told over and over again, like I was by my conventional doctors, and I was a conventional doctor, that food doesn't matter is infuriating, frustrating as hell. And so I've had to really kiss a lot of frogs and learn a lot over the last 22 years of my career. And I came down with autoimmune disease about 12 years ago to really learn a lot, to really figure out what is it that works in dealing with autoimmune disease, what worked for me. And I'm a medical doctor, I'm an MD, and I'm a scientist. So specifically, how do we use data as our secret weapon to be an advantage in dealing with this? So like many of you, I went on elimination diets like crazy. And what I found was that I was eliminating more and more food, and I'm a foodie. So I ended up really limiting and zapping the joy out of my life. And I wasn't getting better. And in fact, I was getting worse, which you will hear when you hear Misty's story, that a lot of people eliminate more and more, and they actually get worse and worse. And that's when I call it flying blind. You don't have data to guide you. So I want to start off this talking about what, we have a unique process in our program, which is food mapping, which has taken me the last 12 years to really figure out and to perfect. And I want to just go through exactly how we do food mapping really briefly, so I can show you guys what is the big difference. Why does our process really work? Okay. And what I learned over 12 years of pain, anguish, and as a provider to actually help other people with autoimmunity. So I'm just going to do a quick graph right here and do a quick teaching. This is how I teach all the time. I know I'm an MD, but I love being a teacher. And I want to actually show you with the graph. This is health outcomes. And over here is time and tools. the amount of time and tools that you get. So this is the trajectory of how people do in our program we work with them for 2 months in our program, and we also have 2 months in the program, but I'm really clear to point out to people that there's a year-long process of improvement for autoimmune disease, even after the 2 months with our program. So I'm telling you that things continue to improve over time, and it's huge. What I'm going to tell you is that let's start right away with just talking about what is some of the most important keys and tools that you need. Number one is data. And this is where people get all jacked up, because doctors will tell you that, number one, food doesn't matter. But number two is that all the testing is bunk. And I'm going to tell you right away is that number one is for people to understand that there's a big difference between IgE, which is anaphylactic emergency testing that you do at the allergist, either with blood or with skin testing. And then there is what's called IgG or IgA type testing. And this is more intolerances. And what we find is that for people dealing with autoimmunity is that IgE, which are your anaphylactic reactions to peanuts or shrimp, you already know when you eat it, immediate reaction. What we find with IgG and IgA, which is the foods that are slow and low reactions. So they can take anywhere from 3 hours to 3 days for symptoms to even show. So if you have symptoms that show up 3 days later, how do you know it's the broccoli you ate 3 days ago? You can't. And if there's a multiple of different foods, how do you know it wasn't the sesame? So it becomes really confusing. So number one is that there's a big difference between IgE, anaphylactic immediate reaction testing, versus IgG or IgA testing, which is intolerance testing. And the key to dealing with autoimmunity is understanding the role of the intolerances, which are the slow and low reactions, because they tend to trigger a lot of the symptoms and irritation that sparks autoimmunity. Number two is people tell you all the testing for intolerances are bunk or they suck. And I'm going to tell you it's not true, because the right test matters. So I have done probably 30, 40 different companies of testing on myself and working with clients over the last 12 years. And I can tell you that most of the tests, I would say 95% of testing out there is actually very inaccurate in people with autoimmunity. And the reason is that if you think about people with autoimmune disease, they have a hyperactive immune system. So their likelihood to overreact to foods can be crazy, or their immune system is so busy that they could be underreacting to everything. So there tends to be a lot of what I call false positive and false negatives. So believe it or not, after tons of trial and error and tens, $20,000 worth of testing, I figured out there is a right test to do. There are right tests that you can do. So importantly is that people spend so much money and time going to natural doctors or functional doctors, but yet it's not the best test for people with autoimmunity. So right test matters. So data is really important. And number three is there's so many protocols out there just telling you to blindly eliminate. Elimination diets is a problem. It can be helpful, but the problem is eliminate such large groups of food that it can be very limiting for people who are already suffering and health nutrient deficient. And number two is that it can take this joy out of preparing food for you and your family. And number three is, while it helps some people, for the vast majority of people, they don't get long-term results when they're dealing with elimination diets, okay? So data is really important and is not step one of our protocol. Number two is that there are patterns, what I call pattern recognition. So what I'm going to tell you is that there are specific patterns that are unique to people with autoimmune disease. So what that means is that because of the high false positives, high false negatives, sometimes people will even get the right test, but when they get the right test, they don't understand the false positive and negatives. So they think the data is telling them one thing when actually it's overcalling or undercalling certain things. So understanding this type of pattern recognition requires an education model. So you got to be taught, and your providers have to be taught if you're seeing them. And good luck with that. How many providers do you think are taught, number one, of the right, first of all, that food matters. Number two, they know the right test. Number three, they know the false positives or negatives in autoimmune disease. So you're depending on your provider to have the education. So we cut through that bull, and I teach patients how to do that. So I have taught patients how to do that, and I teach clients how to do that now on our online program of exactly how to know how to understand the testing properly so that you have the right data to apply to you. And how much time and BS do you think that's going to cut through? A lot, okay? So number three is implement one-on-one implementation. So I have a lot of people who get this test done, they get a handout and they're sent home. Or they get just a report from an online test. Most of them, if actually all the online testing that I've seen pretty much suck, but one-on-one. So now that you have been told either by your provider or through an online test what you need to avoid, you're just left on your own to implement. Well, that can be really difficult for some people. So how do you learn a whole new way of eating, eliminating not 20, 30 foods? Now you have your data, maybe it's 2 or 3, but still some of those could be a big deal. So having support with a functional nutritionist in our program to actually go through exactly with you guys how to remove some of these foods is really, really important. So you need support through a 2-month process on actually how to implement this. And for me, that's really important because that's training for you for the rest of your life, okay? So without someone, and studies actually show that new habits take at least 6 to 12 weeks to really form. And that's why working with us for 2 months is really key to understand how to implement. And the important thing about this is that so many people think it's about the foods that they have to eliminate. But the data is really helpful to help you also put back in all the stuff that you thought was good for you to eliminate, and the data doesn't support it. And you can actually add back a huge amount of food. And so I think it's great is that one-on-one implementation is not just about removal, it's about also adding. And then I love the last piece of our process, which is called reintroduction, which is that even foods that one of the big questions people have is, if I'm told that I need to eliminate foods, does that mean that on the testing, does that mean I have to eliminate for them for life? And the answer is a lot of times, yes, and a lot of times, no. And so we have a specific reintroduction process of how do you reintroduce food. So you can, after you've removed them, when there's a systematic data-driven way to actually reintroduce food where you can say, okay, I'm gonna reintroduce these foods to tell if this is really causing my problem or not. So that there are some foods that may be a big deal before, but over time, as you remove foods, you're able to introduce some of it at low quantities and you don't have a problem. So how freeing would that be for you? So if you're watching right now, I want you to post some questions you have around food. And I want to ask you the question, how freeing would it be for you to re-add back some food that you thought was just, you had to eliminate based on these big, broad brushstroke elimination diets that are generalized for everybody, but personalized for nobody. So what's unique about our food mapping is that we look at step 1, the data. Number 2 is we look at pattern recognition or education. Number 3 is one-on-one implementation. We work with you, with a functional nutritionist, with you guys in a group setting to teach you guys how to implement your foods program to remove or add back more food. And finally is a plan of reintroduction to make this data work for you so you can actually bring back more and more food to bring back joy, freedom, and health results. Why not eliminate the foods based on data and actually get health outcomes? So this is huge, guys, and this is not a theoretical, what we do with this protocol. We actually have a client who recently came through our program, and Misty is going to answer some questions, and I'm going to, just to demonstrate some of these points, okay? And for those of you right now, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. Go ahead and share this video if this is helpful for you right now. And alumni who are joining us, can you actually post in the comments that you're alumni, you've been through our program, and let people know what your experience with food mapping was and how it's changed your life. And what that process was like. So if you're in the alumni or you're currently in the program, please chime in and say, give us a thumbs up and write in the comment, I'm alumni or I'm currently going through the program. So without further ado, I'm gonna go ahead and unmute Misty over here. Hi, Misty.
Hi.
Can you tell us, because you have been dealing with Hashis and fibro for 20 years and you have dealt with food problems since you were a child. So can you tell us briefly, and you've also even had, you had gone gluten-free and you had even gotten testing, hundreds of dollars of testing before, and I want to talk about that before you joined our program, okay? So number 1, Misty, what was life like before you did food mapping around with your symptoms?
I was miserable and I didn't want to eat anything. I didn't want to eat anything at all because eating made me feel terrible.
So was there a rhyme or reason? Was it everything?
I didn't know why.
Okay. You had no
I didn't
idea.
know. That was the biggest problem. I didn't know. I just knew when I ate, I felt bad. And then I got a few different ideas from different people about being gluten-free. or I got a bunch of testing done that cost me hundreds of dollars, and they were telling me I couldn't eat some of the things I thought were good for me and that seemed to feel good actually when I ate them.
Mhm.
I felt good when I ate them, but I couldn't eat those anymore. And I was miserable.
Well,
Eating was miserable. I had told many times, I told my husband, it'd be better if I never ate at all.
I mean, and how many of you watching right now feel that way? Where food's like a food mine, like a minefield where, no matter what you ate, you were feeling bad. You almost feel hopeless, like you feel like you're going to give up. And this isn't for lack of trying, because you said you've been on some elimination diets. You eliminated gluten. And then talk about the testing you had. You went to a doctor and got some testing done. And what did
he did a whole series of testing. He said I couldn't have soy, turkey, kidney beans.
Okay. And what happened?
I didn't even really eat those things except for the soy. But I was like, okay.
So what happened when you eliminated those things with that doctor?
Nothing. I felt terrible and I was sad because soy was one of the things I loved to eat that made me feel good when I ate it. And I was like, great, the one thing I like, I can't eat.
So
it was a bummer.
Okay, so you went on elimination diets, you went gluten-free, and you also had food testing done that was inaccurate, or it just didn't really help you, right? And right?
No.
Okay. And how many of you watching right now has gone through that exact same pattern? Say me too in the comment section right now. So let's fast forward, Misty. You went through our program, and I want to ask you, what was so different about going through our program and going through the food mapping process with us?
It was very precise, and you had a whole specific way of doing it that was different and somewhat uncomfortable, but I watched everybody else. I got to see in the program a group of other people dealing with this issue, and it helped me build my understanding and my belief in I can make it through things that might seem awkward or weird or different, because I can see there's outcomes happening for people all around me who are a lot like me. And so there's going to be a good outcome for me.
Mm-hmm.
It gave me hope.
What I'm hearing is, going through the 2 months educational process in a group, you were able to see people that were a week, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 8 weeks ahead of you, and you could actually see their outcomes. And that was really encouraging to keep you on track and be hopeful instead of just giving up like you had in the past.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it gave me hope, and it gave me, even through frustrating times, because it's not like you're not going to have any.
Yeah.
You're going to have frustrating times in life. And it sucks when you have no one who understands and no one who can give you hope. They're like, oh, sucks to be you. You got problems. I'm like, yeah, that's not helping me. I need to know that I'm going to do something that's benefiting me. And that this program did that for me. I really believed it was awesome that I could believe that.
Well, fast forward. I mean, you're saying that having a community of people around you going through the same thing and being in an educational program made a big difference. Number one. Number
Huge.
two, how much did the data make a difference for you?
That's so important. Nothing would have worked without it.
Well, in your case, what did it show, and what did it show?
Well, it showed that the foods that I was eating, milk and eggs, a lot of them were not my friend, and I should not be eating them. And that's why I did not feel good.
Well, and this isn't for a lack of trying. I mean, you were trying to be healthy and doing the right thing, but you didn't know that in your healthy diet were actually items that were making you sick at all. And the data actually shows 2 of my biggest go-tos was the thing that was making me ill.
Yeah, I swear I had eggs like every morning.
Right?
Through, I don't know, 10 years. I don't know, for so long. Like, always. I just laughed like hysterically. When I saw the paperwork I just was laughing hysterically when I got it in my email. My husband's like, what is your problem? I'm like, look at what I've been eating. No wonder I'm having so many problems. What in the world? How would I have ever known I shouldn't eat eggs? How come no one has ever said that?
Well,
It was just I was blown away.
Because they didn't do the right test on you. And they weren't educated about how these patterns were in autoimmunity. Now, if you saw one of these test results on your children, how well do you think you'll be able to help your children with the education you've had? How much do you think you'll be able to help your children when they do their testing?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. I feel very educated. Your program has opened all the doors that I couldn't see through before. I just like, boom, I'm like wide open now. I can figure all these things out for my family.
Well, let's find out what were your results, because you've been dealing with Hashi and fibro for 20 years. As a result of you eliminate those two items, what do you think has happened? What has happened in your health the last couple months? Because you just graduated about 2 months ago. So everybody, including the alumni that have seen you through the program and people who are watching this, wants to know, where are you now with these symptoms? What has improved? What has changed?
I'm no longer bloated. I no longer have migraines. I'm no longer chasing hunger in weird ways, like feeling hungry or not hungry when you should be hungry. I'm not all over the board. I'm really even. I don't have that kind of ups and downs, all those ups and downs where you're not sure if you are getting sick or like what's happening. I don't feel those anymore. I have energy. I wake up every morning. I've actually now, just in the last week, started doing activities that are hard, that are difficult, like for your body to do. And I was afraid. And now I'm not, because I did them and I don't hurt and I'm fine. I'm so excited.
So way less pain, way more energy. And I want to ask you specifically, you know, it's difficult for a lot of you and a lot of myself included to feed a family, because not only did food matter for you, but it's like dealing with these issues with food and trying to feed your kids who may have a lot of finicky issues and they may have autoimmunity themselves now or later. What has changed in your family as far as eating?
I believe this so wholeheartedly, and it has helped me so much that I've implemented it into our life. Our whole house is gluten-free, and the format of eating is in all of our meals. And I have it's easier to feed my whole family, and they're not even as against it as I expected. I really thought we were going to have awkward times. Actually, I have one boy who's autistic, and he eats better now than he ever has. And I have not for lack of trying with that either, because I've tried forever to get him to eat something good. And for whatever reason, when we're all doing it and whatever is happening with me, maybe he's like receptive to it right now.
Well,
and I'm just like, wow.
Misty, a lot of people don't know that kids with autism spectrum disorder and ADD are actually really high alarming rate in mothers and fathers with autoimmune disease. So I will be honest with you, is that I think what's the missing link in autism and ADD is actually that it's really part of an autoimmune spectrum disorder, to be honest. So, and the other thing is, every food intolerance that you have had, each of your children has a 50% rate of inheriting it. So this is why your son with autism is doing better. And, you know, it's because you're implementing a diet where you're basically eliminating 50% of his food intolerances that he inherited from you.
Yes.
I know.
I love it. It's amazing.
It's amazing. I know. All right. So thank you for being our live case study. Hold on right here. I'm going to let Elsa loose with answering questions from our group.
All right. I'm ready. I have a few. I'm going to start with in our feed right now, some burning questions people have. One, Dr. Maggie, do you believe in eating right for your blood type, or is food mapping more accurate? That's from Lida.
I love this actual question because people say all this stuff. There's all these protocols out there, you know, the blood diet, the elimination diet, the low lectin, all these different diets. And the truth of the matter is these are generalized diet that's personalized to no one. So these are general recommendations that really is not data driven. So for me, if they worked, I wouldn't be able to help anybody because they don't need me. Okay. And if they worked, I wouldn't even be here because it would have worked for me. Right. And the truth is, it doesn't help some people. It may help some people. I have a really great video from Chris Wenzel, which is an alumni that graduated our program about over a year ago. And she was on the blood type diet for years. And the interesting thing with her story, when you watch that video, is that she found out the number one thing she had a problem with for her was eggs. And that was one of the things for her blood type that was supposedly awesome. By eliminating eggs, she eliminated like 80% of her symptoms. And so this is really important for you guys to understand that these recommendations, general recommendations, are not personalized to you. And when you have autoimmunity, you literally have a medical problem that requires data to help solve. So why not unleash your secret weapon to use data to your advantage? Period.
Awesome. And then Angie Simmons asks, why when I've eliminated some foods and been fine, do I backslide in symptoms, even when I've not introduced those foods? So it would be really freeing for her to know and to be able to eat more freely, she says.
So this is a great question. And what it is that why is it that people will get a temporary improvement when they eliminate something and then only to backslide later? Because the truth is you're flying blind. You're taking a guess. Okay. And the problem is flying blind is that when you eliminate something, you usually can eat more of something else. And how do you know some of the mores that you're adding in didn't really aren't the ones using data that's making you worse? And Misty, I mean, you can attest to that. I mean, when you went gluten-free, you started to eat a whole lot more of what?
Milk and eggs. The two things that make me sick.
And so did you get worse?
I got horribly worse. I was so bloated. I was like, I might as well have a baby. I don't know what's the matter with this. What is happening? It was horrible.
So thank you for illustrating my point. And I went through the same thing as well. So thank you for this question.
Awesome. So I have another question from Katie. She said it's really hard because she's been focusing on what she can't have rather than what she can. And so it's getting over that kind of mindset shift. She's wondering, like, what kind of tips for gluten-free do you have to kind of reset that, you know, so that she can start focusing on what she can have rather than what she can't?
Well, my biggest, I think that's a great question. Thank you. And I think that so much of the mental psychology around food for those dealing with autoimmunity is fear. It's really fear because like Misty just said, she was so randomly having all sorts of reactions to food and then later not, that she was afraid of food. And this fear is really real. And it's literally a pattern of trauma over and over again that's recurring. And you wire your brain to almost expect when you get food, you're going to get sick. And there's a lot of people coming into our program with that. There's people in our program right now who are watching. If you're going through our program right now, there are several people that are just joining our program right now that are dealing with food PTSD right now. So I totally get it. But the most important thing I tell people as to how to actually be able to turn this around is to actually get data. Because if you have a data that shows in front of you in pure black and white paper that these are the ones that are causing the problem and these are not, and you can actually gain certainty that what you're doing is actually the right thing. So then instead of, taking a bite of something, having your stomach hurt and saying, oh, maybe that's a problem. But if you feel bad all the time, then everything becomes a problem. So why not have data and certainty to know exactly what you should remove and not what you should add back in, and have a community and an MD and a functional nutritionist supporting you on your journey to know exactly how to do this. So for me, this is, Misty can attest to this because she said that she was, Misty, let's talk about this. You said that you had trouble with eating anything. What do you think really helped change your mindset to now where you're loving food, adding more food and enjoying it and feeling better in your health? What do you think was the mindset changes or tips that you think you could give to people?
I was ready to make a change. So I was like, yeah, it doesn't, honestly, if somebody told me all you can eat is dirt and it'll make you feel better, I would have done that. So I was ready and I was like, fine. Oh, milk and eggs? Well, that's stupid. That's why I was laughing, because I ate so much of it. And I was like, no milk and eggs. Fine. I don't care. So then it was an adventure. Like, what are you going to have instead of milk and eggs? There's a lot of things. I continually find things today. I'm like, wow, this is good. This is nice. This is awesome. And I feel good when I eat it, and I'm not sick and I'm not bloated and I don't have a migraine for 3 days. And I do know that milk causes my serious migraines, because I did have something that had cheese in it. I had a migraine for 3 days.
Well, I love this because, well, what you learned is cause and effect. So I think the biggest mindset tool, like how to change your thinking and fear around food, is understanding that these are not random acts of health violence, food violence happening to you. There's a rhyme or reason. Now you know that you don't randomly have migraines. The reason you had them was because of the dairy that you were having maybe even 2 days ago.
Yeah.
And that is so much power.
So much power. I don't have to have migraines anymore.
Hell no. And you may not eat dairy, but how many more foods have you added into your diet? How big is your choices now?
A lot of different things that I was like, I didn't even know were good. Just things you just start. There's so many different milks. I'm like, I didn't even know these were a thing. I didn't even know there was such a thing as cashew milk. Like, I didn't even know that was a thing. And I was like, oh, that's good. Macadamia nut milk. There's all these nut milks. That was cool. I didn't know anything about them. I thought only almond milk. And I found so many other amazing, there's products that people make that are pretty like cheese. Like, and I'm like, wow, this is good. It's nice.
Yep. Awesome. Great answer. And thank you for helping out. All right, Elsa, next.
Okay, yeah, I have a really great question from Laura Shepard, but I want to preface it with, I talked to a ton of people on the phone about this, and a lot of people have a symptom of stubborn, sticky weight with the program, or with autoimmune disease. It's just a common thing that we see. They're eating super clean, super restricted. They're on AIP, and they still can't get rid of that 60 pounds they're holding on to, or 30 pounds, whatever it might be. So Laura is asking, what is the best way to lose weight? It's really hard. And I think this is a struggle for a lot of people who are trying so hard to eat the right things.
I love this question because, and it's not just around how to lose weight. I have just as many people who ask me with autoimmunity how to gain weight. So I want to preface it by saying that weight is a really complex issue in some ways, because it's not about calories in and calories out. And you guys know this. Okay. And I'm sick and tired of people telling people that, because it's not true. Okay. What the reality is that weight has a lot to do with how much inflammation and autoimmune attack there is in your body that's causing you to hang on to this weight. That's not allowing your body to burn fat, detoxify your body, right? So this is why, for me, if you haven't seen our training about all the pieces to calm down autoimmunity, I want you to go to drmaggie.com and watch our free training to actually go through all the different pieces that shuts down and turns down the autoimmunity so that your body as a whole can function better. Okay. But I'm going to give you a hint right now. Number one is that blood sugar. Nobody balances out blood sugar. Nobody understands that it's not just about the foods. It's about how you eat the foods and when. That actually makes a big difference. And it's not about just cutting sugar. I can tell you that right now at all. Number two is that hormones is the biggest factor in weight loss and in trying to lose weight. And yet nobody's addressing this. So many of you out there already know that you have a problem with hormones, that maybe after the birth of a child, maybe during certain times of the month, maybe you're in your late 30s or late 40s and suddenly you're ballooning. And then doctors are telling you it's calories in, calories out, and you're eating way less than you used to. So I'm going to call BS on that right now, is that they don't know how to test, and they don't understand the patterns of hormones and how it affects autoimmunity. So if you haven't seen my video, my last live was answering all your burning questions about hormones. Please join our Facebook group right now, Transform Autoimmune Disease Naturally. And in there, we have video that a live Q&A just 2 weeks ago I did on all the burning hormone questions. You got to get tested. You got to understand and get educated about the patterns yourself. And you got to know how to balance your hormones to crush losing weight. Period. So tons of our clients have lost a lot of weight and they weren't even trying. Why? Because for the first time in their lives, they have blood sugar balance and hormone balance. So boom, get that done. And that's why it's an integral part of our program. You got to get the data and you got to learn how to do this.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, Sarah Piper just asked a really great question. She says, how important is food rotation to prevent or minimize food sensitivities?
Say that again.
She says, how important is food rotation? So, diversifying what you're eating to prevent or minimize food sensitivities going forward. Is that important?
I think to me is in some ways it's overcomplicating it. For me, the most important step that people don't do is actually getting the data first. Number one is if you don't get the data first, then you're worried already about rotation and you're not even rotating the right things. So you got to get certain clarity. Number one is what the data is. Number two is you got to get educated, first of all, to deal with what you're removing and what you're able to add back in. If you're not doing that properly and supported and it's a new routine, you're already thinking 6 steps ahead and what do I need to rotate? So I think that it's almost like you're missing the first couple steps that are so crucial. Number 3 is when you're talking about rotation, I don't find it necessarily to sit here and rotate a bunch of food in a way. And I think that's really overcomplicated. I love to simplify food for people by getting the right data and supporting them with the right environment and the community and education with functional nutrition with an MD to go through this. And you do not have to go through some crazy ass rotation to make this happen. I just think that's layers of complication you do not need.
I agree. Totally. I'm Kim Larkin, likes your nails, by the way. And Kim had a super awesome win today. She's an alumni. She got a promotion, a big promotion with her job because her brain fog is gone. So congratulations, Kim.
Oh my
and
gosh.
she has a bunch of other great wins that she shared in the comments. So if you want to learn about her, check that out. I would love to ask you, I have a lot of questions. I know you touched on AIP diet and other diets, but one person is saying that AIP just makes her angry. So Leah Roche says, AIP is making me angry. Let's talk about that a little more. AIP, what's wrong with that? And why isn't that a long-term great solution?
I don't think that AIP inherently has something wrong with it per se. I know the people that create AIP and kudos to them because I think that what they're trying to do is just look at any food that has a potential of triggering autoimmunity and saying, hey, why not just eliminate it? And I think that's a great first step for some people. And it does help some people to eliminate everything that could possibly cause autoimmunity. But here's the problem is that it's extremely limiting because if you have to eliminate 20% of food on the planet and some of them happen to be your favorites or your staples and it's not data driven and a lot of people just get angry. They can't stick with it. It's unsustainable. And the other problem is because it's not data specific, it may not be helpful. Because I do have plenty of people who went on AIP and it turns out that what was triggering their autoimmunity was something totally off the list of AIP based on the data. So then in that way, I mean, why not just start with the data instead of years and years of making yourself pissed off and angry and scared of food, right?
Exactly. And what about, so Becky is asking for RA, which food can she eliminate? I see this a lot. I hear a lot of people ask about like, well, I'm doing this diet for Hashimoto's. I'm doing this diet that was recommended for RA. They're doing it specific to the diagnosis. Can you shed a little light on that?
So what I'm going to tell you is that do not base your diet on a diagnosis. That again is a generalized diet. It's personalized for no one. Okay. So you just got to stop asking these questions of what should I eat for scleroderma? Okay. I am more interested in, for example, Missy's case, if she got on a diet for Hashimoto's and for fibromyalgia, which she's done in the past, I'm not interested in that because it didn't help her get better. I'm more interested in what specifically based on data should Misty eliminate and add back in. Okay. And I'm going to ask you, Misty, I mean, you've done all these diets for this. And so tell me your experience with that.
They were hard and they didn't really give me long-term benefits. And they did make eating sad. I'm in a windstorm, sorry. I'm like trying to find a spot. They were just making my life more complicated and uncomfortable, and they didn't really work. Even if it was for a short period of time, I felt like the one girl said, like, sometimes I eliminate something, then I feel better, then I feel worse. That's how it was. There were some times I felt better. I'm like, oh, good, it's working. And then I felt worse, and then I didn't feel better. And then I didn't know why. And
so, I mean, I love this real life example exactly of somebody who, you know, quote unquote, guys, somebody who is going on an elimination diet based on Hashimoto's or on fibromyalgia. I mean, if you go Google on what is the right diet for Hashimoto's or rheumatoid arthritis or fibromyalgia, you're going to get 20,000 results. And they all, not only do they eliminate like 20% of the food on the planet, but they also contradict each other. So this is like what I call the Google paradox. The more you research it, the more confusing it is. And that's why for me, it's maddening. And our lives is already consumed by the autoimmunity. Why not just get data and clear it up? Boom, go.
I like it. So I have a question for Carla. Carla chimed in a few days ago. She asked this question. She's coming in from Australia. She's on a vegan, plant-based, whole foods diet. She's wondering, is that something you can work around? Like, she wants to commit to a plant-based diet. Can that work within the food mapping process?
Hell yes. And for me, I'm a huge advocate. I love, I would say something that one of the major changes I've made in my own health is moving to a very high plant-based diet. And I enjoy it. And there's so many benefits to it. And there's a lot of medicinal properties to a plant-based diet as well. So for me, what's the most important thing though, is that you needed to do it as data-driven. You know, so the problem and issue sometimes with people on a plant-based diet who's vegetarian or vegan is they can overeat certain amount of things. So imagine if you're vegan and you're actually, from the data, is intolerant to soy, and yet you're full of eating tempeh every single day or tofu every single day and drinking soy milk. So it still presents problems. And that's why for me, data is really important, because once you realize, oh, I can't do soy, let's say that's what the testing shows, there's so many other foods in a plant-based diet and so many other ways to get protein or fat. That's what I love to teach people. And so I just recently did a video that taught our group on how to eat healthy fats, and especially even people who are vegan or vegetarian, how to get some really good fats in, creative ways to do that. Whole heck of a lot of fun to do. And so absolutely, plant-based diet, vegetarians, vegan diet, absolutely can work with our program. And it's even more why data is even more important.
Yeah, and I think Misty can probably talk, further about this, but really the support that people get is unmatched too. I think it goes beyond the data, and yes, there's education, but then there's support along the way to help work around those discoveries, right? And to learn how to, if you can't have soy and you're on a plant-based diet, we give you so much support. We have functional nutritionists working with you and Maggie doing that. So it's just, and everyone else in the group, it's a collective, it's a community, and everyone works together to support each other in the food choices. So I think for someone like Lisa, she has a question on cravings, like, coming up with new snack ideas to replace the old bad habits or the foods that you can't have. Maybe they were healthy and now you need to change it. How do you work around that? And that's where that support comes in. So maybe you guys can talk about that.
I'm going to ask Misty to speak on this after I speak. And because the thing is that blood sugar balance, it's not just about, guys, it's not just about food and autoimmune. So many people said, I just want to deal with the food. And I'm going to let you know that you're not becoming in this, getting yourself armed with all the tools. Okay. Because it's not just about food intolerance or food mapping. That's why blood sugar, hormones, gut healing, there's a lot of different pieces of our protocol that fit together. And when we're talking about cravings, that doesn't necessarily have to do with food intolerance. Cravings is a major brain mindset issue. Number one, how you think about food. And number two is it's a big blood sugar issue. So many people with autoimmune disease have huge blood sugar issues. And speaking about Kim Larkin, we did an interview with her, which is a workshop live on the role of blood sugar and how it turned around her lupus for her. So for those of you that are interested in that blood sugar video with Kim Larkin, please join our Facebook group, Transform Autoimmune Disease, and let us know. We're happy to tag in that video so you can watch our whole workshop around blood sugar. So you cannot manage cravings if you don't manage your blood sugar. And it's not about cutting sugar and that's it. So I would love to have Misty comment on what the role of what was the support like for learning to deal with blood sugar, and what were the results?
The support and the education was phenomenal. It's very simple, and it was almost so simple you don't want to believe it. It's almost like, that's it? Okay. That seems so simple. And it is. And yet you have to do it to see the results. And then you do, and then you're like, yeah, that's exactly what you should do because I feel better. This is exactly what you do. You eat and keep your blood sugar level with the fat, fiber, protein. You know, you have a whole little plan that's laid out for you. It's very simple. And then the foods, you can really adjust. You can really add what you need or take out what you don't need. It all works, and it's not complicated except for in your head at first. It's all in your head at first when you're like, how do you make a change? And then you do, and then you get results. And then you don't care anymore what you do or don't have to do. What you're like, this works and these are results. And I'm going to do this because it works.
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, one of the things is you said that the dairy eliminated your migraines, but I can guarantee you that one of the reasons that you had migraines is because you had severe blood sugar balance issues. Am I right or am I wrong? You never told me about this. So I'm going to ask you, I'm going to go on a limb.
I think that there were some of my migraines did come from that. I knew when I was younger that I had like a low blood sugar. My mom used to always say that. She's like, oh, you're hypoglycemic. So I was always snacking in general. That was my thing. So I was already part way there. I just maybe wasn't snacking on all the right things. That was one thing. But I had a different type of low and high blood sugar because it was most of the time even. Pretty even. I think I felt like it was. I didn't feel like that was the biggest part, but I did notice a difference when I changed the combination of foods, fat, fiber, and protein.
Great.
That made a whole. And I was like, wow. When I eat now, I don't need to go to bed or sit in a zombie suit for half an hour to 45 minutes. Now I eat and I feel alive and energized, and that's amazing.
I love it. Thank you, Misty. Go ahead.
All right, so Misty is really solid on her cause and effect, but Gina is having a hard time because she can't figure out what she's reacting to. So it changes. Sometimes it's stomach pain, sometimes nausea, sometimes weakness. It feels really random. So she's having a hard time figuring out what foods are causing what problem. Can you speak to that?
I love speaking to this question because this is the whole cause and effect, and I really want to point this out, okay? So for me, if you think that there's random acts of health violence happening in your body without cause and effect, if you think food is like random acts of violence without cause and effect, you pretty much live in fear, uncertainty, and hopelessness all the freaking time. And that's where most people live in dealing with autoimmune disease. And so for me, this is a crusade. And for me to actually bring education into autoimmunity. Why? Because autoimmune disease for all of us is the fight of our lives. And why do we have an educational model around, going to college with vocation, with sports, with music lessons, with dance? Why do we have an educational model around that? But we do not have an educational model around the fight for our lives, and not just us, our children's lives. Okay. So this is like a soapbox for me, but like it is my mission to actually teach people like exactly using data, using education, the power of community, and working on how you think to say you must know exactly what the cause and effect of all your symptoms are. Because why? If you know the cause and you know exactly how to deal with it, then it's a total choice and power to know, hey, I get migraines is because of dairy. Oh, I got joint pain and it's because I have low blood sugar and I wasn't taking care of myself during testing period, during my exams. Okay. And that's why my joint pain is so much worse. I can't sleep. Oh, it's because I have blood sugar problems. I'm gaining weight because I have hormone problems and I know how to fix all those problems. how powerful do you think you'll be? So for me, this is the answer to hopelessness and overwhelm of no cause and effect is get yourself freaking educated with data and a community support education. So important.
Yeah, and I think this really trickles down to kids too. I think this is what makes this so successful for children in our group is that the kids get that cause and effect. They understand why that food is causing that problem. So then they have the willpower. Then they don't choose the pizza with their friends when otherwise they would if they didn't really understand the why. And I think Misty, we were talking before this, she talked about the why being so important with all of this.
Well, Misty, you actually brought up something in our during the program. You had said that you were gluten-free, but you didn't know why. How important was understanding the why for you?
It was mind-blowing because being gluten-free without a strong commitment is hard because everything in the world has masses of gluten in it and you feel like you're restricted from every delicious thing all over the place. You're like, oh, everyone else can have all these delicious things and what can I have? And I felt that way, but I was like, well, I do feel a little bit better being gluten-free, so maybe whatever. I was wishy-washy and it was hard. And then I learned what it really is, the knowledge and of the science of the name, what it is, what it does, what gluten comes from, the whole thing. And I'm like, wow, why did no one ever tell me this? Because this is mind-blowing and I never want to eat it again. It is, I no question. I don't look at it and go, oh, if only I could have that now. No, I do not want that in my body. No, I know exactly what it is. And now I am 100% sure where I stand and what I want to eat.
Question though is, how did you get your son with autism, who has typical kids with autism has a lot of food aversions? How did you get him to come along with these dietary changes?
It was sort of not that like magic. I don't know. I just would tell him, well, because he gets stomach aches and he gets headaches. And then I would tell him, so I started telling him, you can't eat that bread, honey. That makes your stomach ache. And he'd be like, no, I want to eat that bread. I was like, oh, well, if you eat that bread, that's going to make your stomach hurt. It's going to make your head hurt. And he's like, I want a sandwich. Or, okay. I'm like, so then he would eat a sandwich and he would have a headache and he would have a stomach ache. And I'm like, see, I'm so sorry. You cannot eat that bread. That makes your head hurt and your stomach hurt. So it was easy because I could pinpoint them with
say that again.
Yeah, I could pinpoint him with something that he felt. So That made it a little bit easier for him. That may not be for every child has something they can feel when they eat, that they don't feel the difference right away like that. But he did. But my little girl, she went very easy. She doesn't have the symptoms that he has, but she was all like, no, gluten-free. I'm gluten-free. Like she's all over it. She couldn't be happier. She's like, I don't want to, because all I could say to her was like, it will help keep you from being sick all the time because she hates to get sick. I was like, it'll help you because she does get sick quite a bit. And then she misses school and she hates it.
Right.
So, and I'm like, this will help you. And it has helped. It's phenomenally helped. I can't remember. Like she would get sick like every 3 weeks. I was like always sick. And now she's not sick.
So this is a really powerful point I want to illustrate, which is that cause and effect not only helps you, but it gives you extreme clarity and certainty in actually helping and teaching and educating your children.
Yeah.
So Misty is a perfect example of this. Congratulations, Misty. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. This has been awesome.
Thank you. Elsa?
Yeah, I have one more question that I hear a ton on my call. So I talk to people who are, inquiring, seeing if they're a good fit for the program. And one of the biggest worries around food is, how am I going to be able to do that? I have severe fatigue. I have brain fog. I'm in pain. I can hardly get out of bed in the morning. Like, how am I going to work around those struggles and then do the food on top of it? It feels overwhelming. Can you talk about how that works? Or maybe some alumni can chime in the comments too.
Well, yeah. So to me, is basically people get so fatigued and overwhelmed. It's like to me, it's like trying to mop a floor and you didn't turn off the faucet. Okay. And then you say, I'm so exhausted from mopping the floor everywhere there's water that I can't I can't do anything else. But the truth of the matter is the answer is really simple, which is what is the quickest, fastest, smartest way to stop mopping the floor and being exhausted on the floor? You go and turn off the freaking faucet. Okay. The faucet is what is causing the huge autoimmune attack, which I call Godzilla. Godzilla is sending thousands of attack to thousands of targets in each of your bodies, not just one, but many different targets in your body. And that's why a lot of times people will get a diagnosis of RA and they're wondering why they have all these bowel symptoms or their hormones suck. It's because that's one diagnosable autoimmune disease. That doesn't mean you don't have the other 8,800 other targets. So this is a big deal. It's a concept in autoimmune disease I want you guys to know is you got to actually go and shut off the faucet. And what does it take to stop feeding Godzilla? How do you starve Godzilla so he no longer attacks 1,000 targets? Well, watch the training at drmaggie.com. And I laid out exactly what our protocol is on how to stop Godzilla, which literally is how do you stop the autoimmune attack? How do you turn off the faucet? And that is the most important thing you must do because you're right. You're exhausted. I would be too if I'm mopping the floor and there's literally water from faucets that's shooting out like a fire hose at you, right? So that's the issue. So focus on the real problem. The real problem isn't mopping all over the floor, is Godzilla, turn off the faucet.
That's awesome. I just want to say I love watching your passion around food, Maggie. It's like you love food. I've seen it firsthand going to restaurants with you. You love ordering tons of things off the menu, and you have autoimmune disease yourself. So you've been through this journey, yet you still eat so many different kinds of foods. No matter where you are, you don't let that hold you back and limit you. And so I just love watching you work with everyone in the program and really share your passion around food. And I think that is really so freeing. It shouldn't even be called a food mapping process. It should be called a food freeing process in my mind, because that's what you give people. And I love watching that.
Well, I wish I could actually rename the protocol from food mapping to actually food freedom. But a lot of times with food freedom, people don't understand how much I use data in it as a scientist. So I am such a huge foodie and I love food and I love bringing my joy of food and the use of data to people in the program. And people who are in the program currently can attest to the fact that I'm constantly posting and talking about food because I love food and I love how food heals me. And I love helping people learn the process of using food to totally turn around the autoimmune disease and live in joy and freedom. That's what this program is about. That's what I'm about. And that's a huge part of our program is food mapping, which is food freedom.
Awesome. What do you think of goat butter? That's been the latest favorite new tool, I feel like. The goat butter I see come up a lot.
Well, this is why testing is really important. I think when you look at goat butter, if you actually come back with food testing and you can't do dairy, people don't realize how amazing if your goat dairy comes back to negative, how amazing that is as an option as well. So I love goat butter and I use that. So there's so many cheats and ways to deal with this. So what I want to do is I want to wrap this up. It's been over an hour and I want to thank everyone for joining us. I hope this answers all your questions about food and the role in autoimmune disease and how food mapping as a process in our program really frees everyone. And I thank you. I want to thank Misty for joining us. Misty, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your real experience.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for helping me. Thank you for giving me something I can help my whole family with. And this program is for anyone who wants to do it. Just do it.
So I want to say good night to everybody and thank you. To learn more, you can go to drmaggie.com to register, watch our free training, and you can please join our Facebook group, Transform Autoimmune Disease Naturally. We have tons of videos in there to learn more about hormones, blood sugar balancing, to actually meet other people in our community, alumni that have been through our program or people that are currently in our program. So have a great night and thank you for joining us tonight. And Elsa, thank you for being our moderator.
Hey, you bet. My pleasure. It's fun.
Have a good night, everybody. Bye.
Bye.